When money dies, the Soviet collapse and the Barter Revolution, imagine a superpower. A nation with thousands of nuclear warheads, a space program that reached the stars, and a military that made the world tremble. Now, imagine that superpower vanishing in a single weekend. This is not a hypothetical scenario. In December 1991, the Soviet Union officially ceased to exist. But for the 300 million people living within its borders, the collapse wasn't just a political headline. It was the total disintegration of their way of life. Overnight, the ruble, the currency they had worked for their entire lives, became nothing more than colored paper. The stores were emptied, the factories stopped, and the social contract was burned to ashes. This is the story of how ordinary people survived the death of a superpower, and it provides a brutal blueprint for what happens when the complex systems we depend on finally break. The first thing you must understand about a systemic collapse is that it happens gradually. Then suddenly, for years, the Soviet economy had been rotting from the inside. Debt was mounting. Productivity was falling, and the government was printing money to hide the truth. But the public maintained an illusion of normalcy until the very last second. When the end came, it wasn't a slow transition. It was a cliff. People went to bed in a superpower and woke up in a failed state. This is the first rule of survival economics. The system will look functional right up until the moment it is UNH. If you wait for the official warning to prepare, you are already too late. In the wake of the collapse, the most shocking realization for the middle class was the total uselessness of paper wealth. People who had spent 40 years saving for retirement saw their bank accounts wiped out by hyperinflation. Alive as savings that could have bought a house in June could barely buy a loaf of bread by December. This is why we emphasize hard assets. In Russia, those who survived best were those who had physical goods. A bag of sugar, a box of nails, or a spare car part became more valuable than 1,000,000 rubles. In a collapse, the economy simplifies. It moves away from abstract numbers on a screen and returns to the raw reality of human needs. This led to the birth of the Barter Revolution and a system known as BLAT. BLAT was an informal network of favors and exchanges. Because the official economy was dead, people survived through their connections. If you knew a plumber, you would give him a bottle of vodka to fix your pipes. If the plumber knew a doctor, he would give that vodka to the doctor to get medicine for his child. Vodka became the shadow currency of the Soviet collapse. It was portable, universally desired, and held its value far better than any government-issued note. This teaches us a vital lesson in a crisis. Social capital, who you know and who trusts you, is just as important as financial capital. The collapse also proved that status is a liability, but skills are an asset. During the Soviet era, being a university professor or a high-level bureaucrat was a position of great prestige. But when the system failed, those people were the most vulnerable. They didn't know how to grow food, fix a generator, or defend their homes. We saw former rocket scientists selling their medals on the street just to buy milk. Meanwhile, the mechanics, the carpenters, and the small-scale farmers became the new elite of the survival economy. They had tangible skills that the world still needed. If your wealth is tied entirely to your position in a corporate hierarchy, you are at extreme risk. True security comes from what you can do with your own two hands. Security in the post-Soviet era became a private responsibility. As the state lost its monopoly on violence, organized crime filled the vacuum. The Wild East of the 1990s was a place where law was a suggestion and power belonged to whoever had the most resources. For the average family, survival meant retreating into micro-communities. people moved back to their small country cottages known as the chas. These tiny plots of land, which had been used for weekend getaways, became the lifeboats of the Russian people. They grew potatoes, preserved vegetables, and raised chickens. While the city starved, the people in the dichas survived. This highlights the importance of geographic diversification. You must have a place to go when the urban centers become unsustainable. The psychological impact of the collapse was perhaps the most enduring scar. To lose your country, your currency, and your identity all at once creates a form of collective trauma. Many people simply gave up. Alcoholism and suicide rates skyrocketed, but those who thrived were the ones who maintained a survival mindset. They accepted the new reality immediately and didn't waste time mourning the old world. They understood that the rules had changed and that they had to adapt or perish. This mental flexibility is the hallmark of the sovereign individual. You cannot control the collapse of a superpower, but you can control your response to it. Today, as we look at the fragility of the global supply chain and the mountain of debt in the West, the Soviet story feels uncomfortably familiar. We live in a world of just-in-time delivery where most cities only have 3 days of food on the shelves. We relied on a digital financial system that could be switched off by a cyber attack or a banking holiday. The Soviet people lived through the unthinkable, and their message to us is clear. The system is thinner than you think. Do not trust the currency. Do not trust the state to provide. And do not trust the illusion of stability. Your roadmap for navigating a similar shift involves 3 key pillars. First, material preparedness. You must have a stockpile of tradable goods items that will always have value regardless of the economy. Think of tools, hygiene products, and long-term food. Second, skill acquisition. Every month, learn one practical skill that does not require electricity or a computer. Become a person of value. Third, community architecture. Build your own network of trust. Know your neighbors. Find like-minded people and create your own blood system today. The collapse of the Soviet Union was a tragedy, but it was also a testament to human resilience. It proved that even when the greatest structures of man fall, the individual can endure. Survival economics is about learning these hard lessons now so that you do and have to learn them when the stores are empty and the money is dead. The history of the future is being written in the failures of the past. Information is your best asset. Stay ahead of the curve. Prepare your life, protect your family, and welcome to the reality of survival economics.